Happy to be here at Sprint Demo, Sprint 26. We're making some minor changes to the format this time. So to share with you what that'll look like, now that both product groups are working on MDM features and kind of crossover between those product groups, we're going to start demoing by features instead of by product group. So right now we're breaking our features down into MDM features and endpoint ops features. Some of those are kind of both. So we're just picking and saying, okay, scripts is MDM and calendar is endpoint ops. And that'll just help us have a little bit more organization. We're also going to start with MDM features since that is the primary focus and what we want to show off to the company and to all of the community and customers. And then the last change is going to be that when we're demoing a user story, we'd like to start by pulling up the user story and reading it out loud and explaining why it's important to customers. And any other context that you have about why this got prioritized, what customers are asking for, what's the pain that they're feeling that this story is going to solve. And then we always want to show where the documentation for the feature lives during the demo. We have a Q3 OKR to make documentation a top priority when shipping features. So this will be a good way for us to help kind of spread the knowledge of where it's at, or if it doesn't exist yet, that's okay. We'll just note that and make sure to create a subtask or a ticket to get that created. So with all that preamble out of the way, Sprint 26, welcome. Fleet 4.54.0, codenamed Iron. We will have an unscheduled minor release next week, 4.55. We're doing that because we have one feature that's not quite ready yet, and we don't want to hold the entire release. So we're going to ship everything we have, and then a week later, we're going to follow it on with another big user story, which is app management and VPP. So with that, I am going to hand it over to George and everyone who worked on MDM features.
Righty, well, we're starting with Lucas and Rachel. Take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Lucas, feel free to jump in at any point. I'm going to go through the UI of this feature. Let me go ahead and pull up the ticket as well. So like we said, we're going to talk about the user story first. And so here we are. This is our user story. Let me zoom in for you. As an IT admin who managed completely owned iPhones and iPads, I want to see iOS and iPadOS platforms in the Fleet UI so that I know which features are available for my company-owned iPhones and iPads. So this story was about half back end, half front end. And as you guys know, we already started the support for iPads and iPhones in our UI, but it wasn't really showing much other than on the host list. And so now we've added some more stuff to feel more complete and reach more product maturity for those two types of platforms. So when you come to your dashboard, you'll now see that we have these two new icons here. And it is a little squished more. So we updated the styling to be responsive. And so it's going to switch to this little 3x2 when you change it. And this naming is now not on the side. So it's a little bit cleaner. And then also we have our platforms are also on this platforms page. Currently, we only have the host, the operating system, and the MDM enrollment information on here, and that's for both iPads and iOS. And then you can go ahead and click on one of those icons here or on the main page, and that's going to go to your host view, which this is now added as well. We now have the platform drop down, adding iOS and iPadOS for the host view. And then if we go ahead and look into a specific host, so I don't actually know whose iPad this is. We have added this OS settings little information. Before this was hidden. And so you can go ahead and click on this and you can see your OS settings information on here. So these are all the profiles that we've tried to apply onto this host. And then for those of you wondering, I just filed a bug for being able to view the entire error in the UI. And we're gonna move this resend button over. And so that goes for both iPads and iPhones as well. I think we have some iPhones on here. And if you notice, some of the operating system information is not loading yet because these aren't actually checking into Fleet right now. I don't know who owns these. So unfortunately, I was unable to figure that out. And then another place that we updated the UI is on the controls page. We have our API for current versions, and that should have the iPhones. Let's see if I put no team. Here we go. No. It will have iPhones and iPads on here as well. So this should be updating on here. And like I said earlier, we can apply profiles onto iPads and iPhones. So that's the work that Lucas had did. And to do that, you can go to custom settings and you can upload your configuration profiles here. We updated all the text copies to include iOS and iPad OS. This is going to be centered soon, but this is so now we are allowing that to happen as well. And some styling updates, if you did have some scripts on here, which I think we do here, this has been updated in styling, which is awesome. Same thing with the scripts table. This has an updated styling to look a lot cleaner and match the rest of the UI. And I think the last thing we updated was it's not evident to our users, but you can't query iPhones or iPads because there's no OS query on them. So if you go to a specific query and you hover over compatible with, you'll see that we leave a note for them that iPhones and iPads are not supported for querying or writing a policy. Lucas, is there anything else you wanted to add?
You could show that, I don't know if it did, but there are no labels, right? The iOS and iPad OS. So you can filter by that. And then that means that as a user, you can target profiles only to iOS or only to iPad OS by using the labels.
Oh yeah, when you go ahead and add a profile using custom settings here, you can use a custom target, but you can or cannot. Yeah.
Okay, then maybe I'm wrong there.
Mm.
We'll have to check this.
I think these only have the custom labels.
Okay.
Anything else we want to add? Cool.
Yeah, one more thing. So from profiles, usually you have those 4 states that Rachel is showing there, fail, pending, verifying, and verified. We have the verifying stage for macOS, and then hosts go from verifying to verified by using OS query, right? And iPad and iPhones, we don't have OS query. So profiles go from pending to verified. They go straight there. They don't go to verifying. Yep.
Yeah. So there's no verifying state for iPads and iOS. Good call out. And so you can be able to see that on this page here. You'll never see a verifying state here. Awesome.
All righty, next up we have Victor.
All right. Thank you, George. The first story is to hide the self-service if there's no self-service software. There are a lot of S's. As an IT admin, I want my end users to only see self-service in Fleet Desktop if I've added self-service software. So we're talking about the self-service up here in the Fleet Desktop. So that I can avoid confusing my end users. So there is no additional documentation changes here. This seems like this should have worked like this from the beginning, perhaps. So I have some software on Team 1. I have some self-service software. for all OSs, and Team 2 does not. So this host is on Team 1. So as before, you see the self-service here. And if I click on self-service, there's going to be a tab here that lets me install software. So on Team 2, I have a Ubuntu host. And if I click on its desktop item, you do not see self-service down here. And if I could go to my device, the self-service tab is also missing here on the My Device page. Okay, so that's what that feature is about. The next feature is to allow the end user to configure user email and enable disable Fleet Desktop when installing the base installer. So the Windows base installer is used in the MDM flow to get our Fleet D onto Windows. So the user story, as an IT admin, I want to basically, well, this is pretty generic. I want to add additional configuration. And what we're adding is ability to specify end user email and enable disable Fleet Desktop. So let's jump into how it looks on a Windows machine. So I have an installer here. And just FYI, this actually works with any installer. It does not have to be a base installer. So for any Windows installer, you can overwrite Fleet Desktop end user email, Fleet URL, and Fleet secret. So in this case, I'm specifying Fleet Desktop false, and note that our base installer has to have Fleet Desktop in it in order to use this true false feature. Because if it didn't have Fleet Desktop included, then obviously, even if you set this to true, you're not going to get Fleet Desktop. And end user email, this is the custom email that will come up. So I'm going to go ahead and do this installation. And it's installing. So I have a team here where it will show up. I think it's installed. Let's see if it shows up. There we go. I don't see the email set yet. Okay, maybe I'll double check why I'm not seeing the email here. The host does show up. All right, I'll investigate. The email should be here. I'll investigate that later, but I'll move on to the next story. And that is a change. Oh, let me back up. Documentation for this is going to be in the article. We have an article talking about how to use configless Fleet D agent deployment. So we will add the additional documentation for these fields down here in the Windows section. I'll move on to the next one. So here, basically, we do not want maintainers and admins to run scripts. So I have this API user, and I'm gonna make them Observer Plus, because Observer Plus and Observer can no longer run scripts. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to run a script. Calling Fleet Control Run Script. I have a script there, and it's not letting me. And if I go back and change this guy to an admin, and then try running again, it'll work. So that concludes these stories. Back to you, George.
Hey, thank you. Next up, we have Tim and Jacob.
Thanks, George. I'll actually show you guys what Victor just described from the UI. We've got it's our window. So here we've got 8 different container tabs with different roles. So here we've got a global admin, global maintainer, global observer plus global observer, and then the same for the Apples team. And you'll see if we go in the UI to a host on the Apples team, we'll see various states of being able to run a script from the UI's point of view. So admin can run a script, maintainer, oop, and run a script, but everybody with lower permissions, so observers, will not be able to run that script. So no option there. And that's the same for all the team level users as well. And let's segue to the run script story, the script timeout story rather. So pulling up the user story. So as an IT admin, I want to increase the timeout limit for scripts so that I can run larger scripts that take more than 5 minutes, e.g. scripts that download files like app update command on Linux. So what we did is actually make this dynamic. Not only can they increase it, they can set it to whatever they want.
Color Marco, real quick. Do you have anything to add on that front? Any color commentary?
Yeah, I guess it's we had some users, yeah, that wanted different limits. So yeah, and it happened, I think, already twice, similar feature requests. So we decided to add this as config, and yeah, I think that would be pretty much from my side.
Cool, thanks.
Welcome.
So if we go to the, we're going to do this at the team level, but it applies globally as well. The team level agent options we now have, thanks to Tim's very hard work on the back end of this one, this script execution timeout setting that represents the seconds that a script will be killed, after which a script will be killed if it runs that long. So we've set on Team Oranges, we've set it to 3 here. And let's now go to our Oranges machine. And we're going to run an infinite loop. Oh, now you see it already worked. So running an infinite loop. Give it a second. And we see that it timed out. Fleet stopped the script after 3 seconds. And that was, again, our setting that we applied. And we can set that to whatever limit. Obviously, more than 3 seconds is going to be realistic for customers in production. Yeah. Tim, you want to take it from there?
Sure. Let me show you another kind of component of that. Okay, let's do a little sanity check over here. I'm going to go back into our agent settings and get all the Zoom things out of the way here. So I have nothing set. Fantastic. So I'm going to add script, and this is top level, by the way. Timeout. I'll do a. This is really nice for demos, by the way. We can set it down to low values in addition to high values. Maybe we'll just do a validation error real quick. You cannot do more than an hour, so this should bark at you. There you go. For demo purposes, I'm going to set it to 5 seconds. Save that. So one thing I want to mention on. Let's see. Let's do this one. So when we're using fleet control, you're setting really long timeouts, and that's going to be a problem for fleet control. So, part of the scope here was to do. We're actually going to pull. We're going to use fleet controls now. We have 2 APIs for script execution. One is synchronous, and one is an asynchronous. And so, fleet control, when you run a let's see, run script. There we go. When you run this, it's going to wait for the server to respond. Not anymore, because you could have long timeouts and bad things are going to happen. So I'm going to run this echo real quick. That should not time out. Perfect, because it's literally just an echo. I have a sleep script, however. I'm going to run. And also note we have a little spinner over there while we wait. And this should time out at about 10 seconds. Now it's 10 seconds from the agent's perspective. So when the agent has to get the command first, and then it's going to time out after 10 seconds. So keep that in mind. It's not 10 seconds from when you hit when you run this command. But here we go. Sorry, 5 seconds is what I configured that for. So that's fleet CTL. Timeouts. Anything else we missed, Jacob?
I think that covers it.
Awesome.
Oh, the docs. Let's show them the docs. I'm going to paste in the chat the location of relevant docs for this. So,
and I saw them in the story.
Oh.
Thank you again, Marco. Here we go. It's pending, I believe it's draft. Yep. But it looks like this. We have a maximum value in an hour, default value, all the good things.
And I've pasted the URLs to where that will actually live in the actual docs in the chat.
In the chat. Cool. Awesome. I think I'm up next. I am up next.
That you are.
All right. Next up are filters for MDM commands. Or fleet control, get MDM commands, I should say. So just a kind of the TLDR on this is currently you run this command. And it takes a long time. Sometimes it times out in this case. So a couple solutions we're adding here. One is to reduce this 1,000 commands returned to 20. And we're also adding some filters. So I'm going to show that here real quick. We're going to live demo here on dog food. So this is a little quicker, not a ton quicker. When we're grabbing, I guess by default we grab the latest commands. So I do expect this still to, even though we're only returning 20, it's still going to take a little bit of time. Hopefully not too long here. Cool. All right. Believe it or not, that's better. Really, where the fun comes in here is when we do host filters. Let's see what's mine. So if I add a host filter here, actually, before I do that, let me just show our help text. Speaking of documentation, so we have hosts and type filters. So I'm going to go back in here, add our host filter. And that should be much faster. Yay. I'm going to also add in another. You can add another type filter. We'll do an install profile. There we go. Now we just get all the install profile commands for that host name. I think that's about it for this feature. There's some talk about pagination that we might implement in a future release, but for now, I think this is gives some benefit here. Gives us a lot of faster feedback here. Any questions?
Awesome. Thanks so much. And next up, we've got Dante.
Yeah, hi. Let me share my screen 1 second. So this feature is enabling scripts on Windows hosts that are automatically enrolled through Azure Active Directory by default. So the client story is, as a client platform engineer who uses Windows MDM, they want to be able to run Windows scripts using PowerShell. The problem previously was that if you installed through Azure, it pulls from the fleetdbase.msi that we have, and that does not have an option for enabling scripts. So what would happen is every client that was enrolled through Azure would not have scripts enabled, and there was no way to enable them. So what this ended up being is we added like previously mentioned in another feature, there are MSI flags. We added scripts, or is it enable scripts here as a flag you can provide. And as you can see here, yeah, this is actually the same thing I was just pointing at. When you are enrolling through Azure, Fleet will issue an MDM command to install Fleet, and it will have scripts enabled true. And here we can see this host has MDM status automatic, which means it was installed through Azure. And if I move that, you can see we can run scripts.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. I'll take it away here for something Martin and Gabe both worked on. Got to make sure to share sound. Very important. All righty. So the user story here is configuration profiles. You could previously set a list of labels that if the host included all those labels previously, then a profile would be dynamically targeted. This is now adding the functionality to have an exclude list, where if they have any of the excludable labels, the profile will not go to that list. And we'll go ahead and, oh my. Well, apparently Loom is very memory hungry. But here we go.
I have a Windows VM configured and enrolled in Fleet with MDM turned on. So now what I'm going to do is I will add some profiles to be installed on this host. Currently it is part of no team, so I'll do the test with this, and I'll do it manually via the UI, and later I'll do a test with fleet control. So I believe it's here, custom settings. I have a couple profiles that I can pick from in here. So profile 1 will be delivered to all hosts. I will then add another one to profile 2, which will be delivered to only hosts that include labels A and B. And the third one to hosts that are not part of labels C and D. So currently my host is not part of any label, any custom label. So it should receive profiles 1 and 3. So I will let's see. Okay, yeah, I will trigger the reconciliation of profiles on the host, and we'll see what happens then. Okay, so I triggered the reconciliation of profiles. You can see that the status is now in verifying. So if I go ahead and click here, you'll see that it's only my host. I only have one host enrolled. It is in verifying state, and if I click here to see what profiles are installed, you can see that profile 1 and 3 are currently installed on the host, and profile 2 wasn't installed because the host is not part of those labels. So that works correctly. And now what I will do is just play with the labels a little bit to check that the conditions are correctly applied. So getting back here, profile 2 is all needs to be the label. Well, the condition is that the host must be part of all labels A and B, and 3 is exclude C and D. So I'll go ahead and make the host part of A, B, and C, which should trigger installation of profile 2 and not profile 3 anymore. Okay, so what I did here is I applied this labels file. So I made my host part of label A, B, and C, and not part of D. So because it's part of A and B, it will install profile 2, but should not install profile 3, which excludes any hosts that are part of C. So you can see it's in verifying, so it has been applied. I did trigger the cron job. So looking at the host, in the verifying state, we can see that now it has profile 1 and 2. So it correctly applied correspondingly to the label membership. So that seems to work pretty well. I'll do some more tests in another video.
Righty. This one is missing documentation at this time, so we'll be sure to add it very shortly. So Roberto's not available to demo this, but Gabe Lopez, could you at least give us a little overview of 19800 and how it affects customers?
Yeah, this was basically out of some meetings we had getting the migration workflow set up and working properly. But essentially, there's some tweaking that needs to be done with config profile payloads. 3 settings specifically need to be adjusted in order to get the SCEP certificate renewed properly. Unfortunately, I can't really demo it, but Yeah, and it's also part of a different ticket linked to the same migration workflow I was working on as well. So we will hopefully provide a little bit more documentation here in the future and some additional details that we can share later on.
Sorry, and thank you. And next we've got Haziel, who is demoing the VPP feature in its current state that is not going out in this release.
And to clarify, not going out in this release, but going out before the next sprint demo. So we're currently planning for 4.55 to go out about a week from Monday.
Cool. Yeah, so like I said, this is not in the release yet, but it'll be coming very soon. And just to double check, can everyone see GitHub right now? Okay. Zoom isn't showing me which screen is being shared, so that's interesting. But anyway, yeah, so this is essentially like an analogous flow to the software installers feature that we added recently. So the user story here is, as an IT admin, I want to install Apple App Store apps on my macOS hosts so that I can give my end users access to software that my organization ordered for them in Apple Business Manager. And yeah, that's pretty much it. As a customer of Fleet, you might have Apple Business Manager set up, and it'll look a little bit like this. So this is our Fleet testing ABM setup. And you can, inside of ABM, you can add apps through this VPP process, and VPP stands for volume purchasing. What's the other P? I know the volume purchasing program. Okay, thank you. I knew someone would know. But yeah, so you can essentially buy licenses for different apps that are on the App Store and then deploy them to your hosts. And so you'll soon be able to do that through Fleet. So Fleet is going to orchestrate that very similarly to how we would orchestrate deploying software through uploaded software installers. So you can see here we have a list of apps, and this is actually, so this has 17, but I want to filter out. We're just doing Mac apps right now, but I'm sure that iOS and other stuff like that is going to be coming shortly. And you can see we've got Evernote, Keynote, and a bunch of other apps here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and head on over to, oh, this is interesting. This wasn't showing up before. Well, let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So we have macOS MDM turned on. You have to have that turned on. You can see here that we have a new tab or a new section for the volume purchasing program for VPP. And to enable it, you have to upload a token that you get from Apple Business Manager. So in that UI that I just showed, there's a way to download it. I already have one downloaded. So we have some instructions here on how to do it, and you can go ahead and upload it. So this is the file. And we validate with Apple Business Manager. So this makes a call out to ABM to make sure that the token that they uploaded is valid. And so now that that's enabled, if we go over here to the software tab, and actually before that, this is a completely brand new Fleet setup. So I have to create a team. And so now if we go back to software, we go to team one. Okay, so now when you click add software, we've already seen this where you can upload an installer, but now there's a new tab for VPP. And you can see here that this is fetching the same list that we just looked at over in ABM. So we've got all of these guys here. So this is actually pulling the live data right now. And George had a good idea to try to add something here live. So we're going to do it live and try to add.
I will note you're on the iOS version. So you need
oh, shoot, you're right.
There you go.
That gets us every time. That got us. Okay. This unknown error thing is something that Apple likes to throw up a lot, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure why.
This one should work. Perfect.
Yes. Okay. Cool. All right. Sweet. So we refresh here. Let's try to pull in the apps. Okay. Sweet. There it is. So if we go ahead and select it, we can click Add Software, and this will add it to our available software page for our Team 1. Go ahead and click through. You can see that we're pulling the icon and stuff. There's going to be updates to this page that are going to look pretty similar to the updates that happened for software installers. Like when you click on a software installer, the details for it, those are still in the works. But yeah, we can come back over here, and you'll note that when you add a VPP app, it's removed from this list. So now we only see the ones that are still available to be added in. So we can go ahead and add Bear or on any of the other apps. And yeah, so that's pretty much where the feature is at right now. We have the actual installation process that's going to happen through MDM commands in the works. That's, I think, really the biggest piece of functionality that's left, and then there's other things to support various UI features. But yeah. Oh, I remember the documentation. We don't have documentation for this yet, but we are going to have an article that is going to be coming out, and I think we will probably be updating these docs here as well to include the new endpoints that we have for adding VPP apps into your software list. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Righty, thank you. And that concludes MDM features. Back to you, Luke.
Thank you. Some cool MDM features. VPP is going to be awesome when that comes into 4.55. Over to Sharon and endpoint ops features.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Great teamwork for pushing our MDM capabilities. And we also have some endpoint ops features. So back to Jacob to show a few features that are basically showing more details, more identifiers of things. Thank you, Jacob.
Thanks, Sharon. So let's start with our user story here. As a Fleet API or CLI user, I want better docs, error messages, and functionality related to host identifiers so that I can easily target hosts with fleetctl commands and API requests. And right on cue, the buzzsaw goes. So this affects quite a few MDM commands, but also more broadly the Fleet app in general. So the first thing here is this command, so running a query with hosts specified, formerly only worked with host names. So what I've done here is expanded this to work with UUIDs and serial numbers of hosts as well, to bring that in line with the documented definition of a host identifier across the rest of the app. So I'm just gonna go here and grab, let's grab this host's name, and we'll add that to what we're going to query here. And then we'll grab this host's UUID here. And finally, we'll get another host's serial number. And these should all be successfully targeted now. Yeah, so we've got 3 targeted hosts. And like I just said, we used 3 different versions of the host identifier to target those. So better functionality for fleetctl query by hosts. And then this work also involved updating some error messages and help text. So if, for example, we run the same command, but host 1234 shouldn't exist. Yeah, so just updated that error message and a bunch of other kind of help text and error messages just to make the concept of host identifier more consistent across the app. And the documentation for fleetctl is here. It's not much. Basically, it says run fleetctl help, and that'll get any users interested in this functionality on their way to what they need to know. Any questions about host identifier work? Okay. Cool. Fleet cuddle. Tim strikes again. So I'm now going to demonstrate 2 fleet in your calendar features in one demo. So let's first read this user story. So as a user on the host details page, I want to see a device's next scheduled maintenance window so that I can tell whether a failing policy is scheduled to be fixed and when. Fairly self-explanatory. And then also, I did this as an end user, I want to see the device host's name in my maintenance window calendar event. So actually on Google Calendar, so that if I use multiple work devices, I know which one is going to have downtime. So, okay, so here we have a policy that always fails. It's got a negative attitude. Hopefully you can change that around, but for now, it's going to fail because true is not going to equal false. And we've got it applying to team oranges, which contains my MacBook here. So let me pull up my Google Calendar at the same time, actually. So now if we enable calendar events for this team, sorry, for this policy on this team, and then let's trigger the calendar cron, and then look. Oh, I'm going to redo that just to make sure you guys see that it worked. So let's turn off calendar events for the policy, trigger the cron, show the host details. And we have we don't see any host maintenance window here. And we'll turn it on one more time. Trigger the cron. And we see that we now have a scheduled maintenance window. So that's the first ticket. And we see the end user's time zone. So this says New York time because I've actually set my Google Calendar's time zone to be New York for the sake of this demo. So this is the time zone of the Google Calendar, not of the fleet user viewing this. So not in my local time here, which is Los Angeles Pacific, but New York. So the time zone of the calendar. And then you'll see, when is it? Tuesday, July 16th at 9 a.m. There it is. And the second story was we're adding the name of my host, namely Jacob's Fleet MacBook Pro, to this description. So that if I am using multiple machines as the same user, I know which machine this maintenance window is for. Yeah, that's the two Fleet in your calendar features, and I believe this is the documentation we have on Fleet in your calendar, this introduction article. Do we have any better documentation? Does anyone know? No? Okay, so this would be the best place for interested users to start with this.
So there's like the documentation on how to set it up, but that's in the product. And I think we were going to try to pull it out. You know, like when you're in the settings and configuring it, there's the instructions on how to do it. I don't know what happened to that issue though.
So I think Luke defined two types of documentations that we want to put for features. One is the explanation of how to use it, and that'll be in the website. And another level would be articles like written by JD and other guys. And those are articles about big features.
Yeah, so does this article that exists already get updated with these additions? Is that what happens?
So this
would be a guide, and then the reference docs are what live in the website. So we call them reference docs and guides. This would be a guide, and then reference docs would be how do you configure it, how do you set it up, and less how do you use it and what do you try to do with it. So if it's in the product and needs to get pulled out, it probably should go to the reference docs, and that should be something that someone in product drives.
Yeah, and I think, look, to answer this question, if we update something, we need to update the document to keep it live.
Right. Yeah. So does that article that JD wrote back when this feature got released get
right.
updated with these new pieces?
It needs to be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that it did, but it needs to be updated. Yeah. Good question.
Cool. Thanks for clarifying that. That's it. I believe that's it. That's it for features.
Did you present the host display name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you did that right. Okay. And now under the same hood of the calendar maintenance, Victor installed a Mustang 5-liter V8 engine that works significantly better, and same feature, but Victor will show the meaning of real time and other things as well. Victor, take it.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. So this is a story. We want to create a new maintenance. If the user deletes or moves a maintenance window in the past, we want to see that it's being recreated in 30 seconds or less. So I have a maintenance window. By the way, this for my previous demo, this finally showed up. So it just took a little while. So I have a host that's failing a policy. This one. And this is interesting.
Yeah, that's a known bug when we change the event. The Google Calendar API is returning UTC. So I'm working on that today.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I have the event here. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to the past. So what's going to happen now is Google Calendar is going to call an API endpoint on our Fleet server, and then our Fleet server is going to go and check whether this event is still here, and it'll see that it's in the past, so it will go ahead and reschedule it for a different time. It should have happened already. Sometimes Google Calendar doesn't update in real time. You can jump here and see if this has updated. All right. The other thing that's going on hasn't updated yet. The other thing that's going on is we are doing some load testing on this. Which may delay how soon it will get rescheduled. See, it's still here. All right, it did work earlier, so I'm gonna move on. We'll check back here. We'll check back here soon, but let's move on to the next feature. So I do want to mention one more thing. There are some challenges here because multiple fleet servers could be trying to update this event. And I'll cover those challenges in the next engineering together. So the other calendar related features is we want to schedule an event on a Tuesday now instead of monthly on the third Tuesday. I can't really demo that because the next Tuesday is the third Tuesday, but that's the change. So it'll be scheduled on a Tuesday. And now I'll move on to the third story related to GitOps. So as a Fleet GitOps user, I want to rename my team. I basically want to rename my team via GitOps. Previously, you could not only use GitOps to rename your team. So now you can rename your team. So I have a new team I'm going to create here, Sprint Demo Rocks. Just going to do a dry run. Dry run looks good. I'm going to go ahead and create this team. If I go back to my server, I have this team, Sprint Demo Rocks. Now if I can go back and rename this in the same file, what's going to happen is that Fleet is going to know that you're using sprint-demo.yaml file name that's associated with this team. So Fleet's going to know which team to rename. So if we go and run it again, go back here to the teams, and you see the team has been renamed. Let's check back into their calendar. Still has not updated, so I'll look into it. Maybe we're hitting a limit because we're doing load testing on this right now. All right, back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Victor. And that actually concludes all features. And back to you, Luke.
Cool. And now it's tag. My turn to tag. Back to you, George, for bug fixes and improvements on MDM.
The potato is hot this time. All right, Lucas, you're up.
All right, this should be quick. When we added iPad and iOS support, we added also a bug. And the bug is that sometimes hosts re-enroll perform MDM enrollment. And when that happens, the added to fleet was set to never. I believe that there were a few dog food hosts that had this issue. So I'm gonna demo real quick the fix, which is basically I have this device, delete this device. Okay, my local device doesn't have MDM, and it says that fleet was added 4 days ago, right? Going to do this real quick. So I go to my device, and then give me a second, we just do this quicker. All right, so I'll turn on MDM, install this real quick. And then when I install MDM, I mean, this is manual MDM enroll, right? When I say install MDM. So I do the enrollment. And what happened before this bug fix was that added to fleet was set to never because of this bug. And now it should not happen. All right, we have 4 days ago, and that's the fix.
It's so
All right,
quiet.
so
Waiting
sorry.
on me.
Apologies.
We're waiting on George, I think, to kick off the next person.
Yep. Multitasking doesn't work in demos. All right. Next up is Dante.
All right, hi. I have a small number of issues here, so I'll try to get through them quickly. Hold on. So the first, sorry, I need to move my screen sharing bar. It's blocking all my tabs. The first issue here was in the fleet D logs table. If you set your time zone to UTC and during some locales, you would have the issue where it would not be able to parse the table correctly because it's expecting you can see here an offset here. And sometimes it would put Z instead of an offset if it's in the Zulu time zone. The fix for that was rather easy. We just had to parse the time using RFC 3339. The second issue was that there was something introduced a while ago where Fleet D will check the hardware UUID to see that if it needs to do some sort of migration in case the thing is restored from a backup. It's only required on macOS and would cause Linux to fail to launch sometimes because Linux, if it's running a VM, often doesn't have a hardware UUID. So now we disable that check on Linux. So we shall not have any more boot loop issues on FleetD for Linux. This one was actually quite a big research ticket, which involves Windows lock scripts on machines that are Azure AD joined. So the issue was on Azure AD deployments that do automatic MDM, often they are joined to a Microsoft account. So you'll log into your computer with, say, joe@example.com as your username. It turns out that Microsoft will actually not let you block the MDM enrolled account on Windows. No matter what you do, you can disable logins from other Microsoft accounts. You can disable local accounts entirely. But even in Microsoft's own MDM solution using Intune, they will not let you disable logins from the MDM enrolled user. So what I ended up doing was I set it so that we disable the use of Microsoft accounts other than the MDM enrolled account. We disable cache logins, so the user, after their Azure account has been disabled, cannot go offline to log in, which is normally the case. It will let you log in if you go offline, but this will stop that from happening. And it puts a little message here that you have to disable the actual account itself instead of just trying to disable it on the host. And then we shut down the machine so that it clears the cache in case they try to log in after their account has been disabled. This might at some point require another ticket to issue that warning more clearly. But yeah, that's the resolution for that. And it's been kind of interesting to look into that. And I don't know entirely why Microsoft won't let you do that. This is similar to another ticket we had on Linux, where we want to be able to uninstall Fleet and let the script return before Fleet is uninstalled. Because what can happen is if the script uninstalls Fleet, the Fleet usually waits for the script to finish before returning to the server to let it know that the script is finished. But if you uninstall Fleet, you can't return to the server. So what we do for this is we have to run Fleet in a background process and detach the child shell, return that the script has finished, and then the child shell will wait a certain amount of time and then do the uninstallation. This was actually very interesting because unlike the Linux one, the semantics for how you detach a child shell so that it doesn't return to the parent are different in macOS. which isn't stated anywhere. The no hub command, which we use on Linux to detach the shell, actually doesn't work here. I don't know why, and it took quite a bit of trial and error to figure out what was causing that error. But now the child shell will detach and it will be able to uninstall successfully. And I can actually demo that one because I think it's kind of neat. If we check out here, this is a virtual machine. You run the script. This is the script that's currently available on the Fleet website. See here. We'll wait for the script to run. Okay, so we can see the script returned. It says removing fleet, system will be unrolled in 15 seconds, executing detached child process. And we'll see here, this is the enrolled machine. Fleet is currently installed. And now it's uninstalled. See, fleet's gone. This script is here in the Fleet repository, but it's actually linked on the Fleet website under docs getting started FAQ. Under the how can I uninstall Fleet, if you click on the cleanup script, it will lead you to this script, so you can run it on your machines. And the last bug was we had a struct that was part of MDM info, which is an internal struct inside of Fleet. Sometimes it would be conditionally populated based on certain conditions, but it was inconsistent and would sometimes lead to bugs where some endpoints would not behave properly under certain uncommon conditions. And here we remove it so that the endpoints always behave correctly and the struct is explicitly fetched from the database when it's required. That's it.
Alrighty, next up we've got Javier.
Hey. Alrighty, so I got a couple of just small ones here. Let's see. All right, so yeah, this one, this was just I don't remember if this was intentional or I think it was intentional. We kind of cut it for time and then it turned out that we needed it we needed it back. So we added back the vulnerable software toggle in the host details page. And so this is just on dog food. If we go and look for software, yeah. So this is back now. It was gone and it has returned. So you can click it and see the filtering like you could before. And then the other small one is there was a change in I guess it was like a Mac OS change that caused the copy that we had when like a host was manually enrolling to be slightly off. So bring my VM over here. This is the My Device page. And you can see that MDM is off for this device. So if we click turn on MDM, you can see that this is now updated to look like what it actually looks like. It'll say organization name and then enrollment profile. That's what you'll see when you're setting up the profile. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I have a couple of demos, not really big demos, but just going to talk about some work that Martin and Roberto both did. So ultimately, this software installed by a fleet not accurately updating count throughout the UI was found to be a duplicate of the fact that sometimes the package doesn't map to existing software titles. So the update here is that we've changed it so that when you update an installer, we try to match it now to the bundle identifier, and that makes the matching more reliable in a way. So that's actually, anytime you thought, oh, I've installed this, why isn't my host count incrementing? Why isn't it improving? It was because it wasn't matching properly. So that has been resolved by Roberto. And then the other big one here is that OS version counts for no team were wrong, and this has been resolved. All righty. Any questions over that? Otherwise, all the other bugs and improvements were worked on are listed there, but if you have any questions, let me know. And then lastly, we've got Sarah.
All right, thanks. Let's see. I've got a couple of things to show off. First, we had a P1, I guess, that actually came in during the sprint, where some interesting shenanigans happened on the client side, where they had invalidated an Apple Business Manager user, which revoked tokens in a way that we hadn't seen before. And it broke our UI in the sense that they weren't able to reconnect to reset their tokens. So we jumped on that and have resolved this issue so that it's now possible to go back into the Fleet UI and edit your ABM credentials after you have revoked the user who originally created those credentials. We have also a dog fooding issue that came in where occasionally, well, not occasionally, it was sure to happen that if you had a host that was enrolled via SSO with the MDM IDP flow, and then they were moved to a team with SSO off, and they attempted to renew their enrollment profile, that it would fail because the profile contains a different server URL. And the reason for that is because of how we had originally implemented the MDM IDP account matching, the mapping for those host emails. It was a little bit brittle in the sense that we were using an enroll reference on the underlying MDM server URL to do that mapping. And that was something we did because at the time we didn't know of a better way. But this issue actually prompted us, thanks to our own dogfooding experience, to take a deeper look at how we were doing that. We were able to find a better, more reliable way to do it using some custom headers that Apple includes on enrollment profile requests through the web view. And this actually ended up being a fairly extensive reworking and ultimately a more mature version of how we're doing the MDM IDP flow overall. So kudos to Dogfooding for bringing this to our attention and giving us the opportunity to make these improvements. Yeah, and then after that, we just have another pesky tooltip that we've fixed, where we had a tooltip displayed when a script wasn't running, saying that it was. So that's been resolved as well. Back to you, George.
All right, thank you so much. And that's it for the MDM bug fixes and improvements.
Great. Thank you all for your hard work. Over to Sharon for endpoint ops, bug fixes and improvements.
Okay, reminding everyone to be as concise as possible. Big list, and we'll go to Rachel with some of the stuff that was released mid-sprint with 5.53 and some with the coming minor release. Take it, Rachel.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Front End Land. So there were some things that were released on the minor. Some of the stuff I'm just going to show you real quick. Here I am as a mixed role user. And this was the stuff I talked about last demo, but it actually got fixed and released and pushed. So our mixed role user had some cleanup that needed to happen. For example, if they were an observer team, they're not allowed to delete queries and policies. So the delete checkboxes are now cleaned up and gone, and they can't add queries or policies either. So the create new stuff is gone as well. One kind of bothersome bug was if you're a mixed role user and you refresh without a team, it pushes you to the team that you have the most permissions for. But that didn't work out that well if you were looking at a different team for certain entities. So if you're looking at Team 11's query 176, this belongs to the team that this person is a maintainer for. If you hard refresh without the team name, it was pushing it to the wrong team and giving the wrong UI. So now it pushes it to the entities team. So since this query belongs to team 11, no matter what, it will push to team 11. So those are some nice fixes. You'll see that there's no edit button. If you have no edit rights, things like that. So if you're an Observer Plus, you can run queries, but you can't edit them. So if I go ahead and look at this query, you won't see an edit button. So that's some of the new improvements. And then thank you, Rachel, for bouncing off some of these during the design sprint to just try to figure out, well, what should they see? I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my admin account for the rest of the demos. And let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, this export CSV is now fixed from the last demo. It was just separating on the CSV based on commas. That's now actually in. We had some browser styling discrepancies with, I believe it's Firefox. A lot of these indicators like status or verifying, it was creating the capitalization using CSS, and we switched it to JavaScript, so it will not have an issue anymore on Firefox because Firefox doesn't support that CSS. What other things? Oh, and then another thing is we had a lot of users say if we were looking at our software vulnerabilities and you see a host count of 1, why is it when we click on view all hosts that we see a different count here? And that was only because the vulnerabilities runs every hour. And so we updated this tooltip to let our users know, hey, by the way, our host counts are 20 minutes old. So if you see a count here different than from the other endpoint, it's because this endpoint is not updated right away. And that all went in with the patch release. Some other things that got fixed is like bug alignments and font size. Policy tables, and you can now sort on the yes column as well as the no column, not just the no column. Other things, oh, this was my one little backendy ticket. If you log into Fleet Control, and this was something that Reed requested, and you go ahead and try to apply a file that is not a YAML file, you will now get, sorry for my mismatched versions right now, but you'll now get an error message saying why you're getting an error. So it's just a little bit more user-friendly. What else? Reduce copy for delete secret. Now, if you try to delete a secret, you're not hit with a wall of text anymore, and you can just delete it and click here to read more about it. And then we now have a loading spinner for current versions on the controls page, since that is a different API. And so we were seeing that take a while to load. And then, oh, this other one was actually really fun to do, and is now going to be applied in multiple places in the UI. It's something that's been bothering other people forever, but before we had a tooltip on all of these UUIDs. Now I've applied some front-end DOM magic to only show on cells that have long truncated UUIDs and not on the shorter ones. So this was in place like a year ago and then somehow got deleted, but then it's not applied everywhere. So that's now being fixed. Also, if you were to go to, sorry, I didn't read that, a specific host and you look at a software path, that's what actually sparked. Sorry, I'm trying to hide my, what do you call it? IP address. There we go. This is what sparked fixing it in a bunch of places was whoever noticed that if you go to a specific software path and you see it truncated and you weren't able to see it in the UI, you can now hover over. And if you have multiple paths, the short ones will not show a tooltip over it and the long ones that are truncated will show it. So I'm in the middle of making sure that it's being applied in all places in the UI that has truncation to make sure that the short ones don't have a tooltip and the long ones do. And yeah, so I think that is it for front end land. Oh, and one last thing I was going to mention is Rachel did a lot of work on our website. This ticket got handed to me and we kind of worked to make sure that our REST API is a little bit cleaner. As some of you know, this is a really long flattened API doc. So hopefully one day we'll make it not so flat, but if you go to Fleet configuration and you want to modify your config file, before it was just a very flat, here are all the parameters, and this table was like, I don't even know, like 60 parameters long. But now Rachel did a lot of the work to separate it so you can more easily modify your config by putting in your config information based on what key that you're working on modifying, which is a lot cleaner to read and to use. And I worked with her to find that there was actually some keys that were missing. And so I think I found 3 keys that were actually missing just because this was so unwieldy to update and keep up, and hopefully now this is a better user experience. So
okay, thank you, Rachel. Any questions for Rachel? A lot of topics there. Questions? Not then, thank you, both Rachels. Back to Jacob for a bunch of improvements. Jacob.
Thanks. So I'll make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. Is this the right one? Yeah. So just gonna get through these quick. So we had a the spinner, you'll notice, is not well aligned. So we've aligned the spinner. So when I enter something here, there's the spinner nicely aligned in the middle and without the previous empty table being displayed. Nice. Okay. And we had a bug where the view all hosts button was not right aligned. Can you all see this all right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And now we see here that the view all hosts button is right aligned. Some 3 bugs. Loading spinner, you'll notice here there was some text being displayed in the background. That's on the vulnerabilities page. So if you watch closely, it's going to be quick. I'm going to refresh. And I don't know if you saw that loading spinner that didn't have anything in the background. It's quick, but the text is gone. And then we had, like Sarah said, some pesky tooltip stuff where the tooltip was getting cut off. So in the miraculous scenario where there's literally one vulnerability in an operating system and it's only one row in this table, the tooltip will look good still. And similarly, if there's only one CVE here, then the tooltip's going to look good there. Updated some empty and hover styles. So settings users, you see there's some grayed out 2 teams. I'll just save you. I updated this here to look like that, 2 teams. 2 versions without being grayed out, since grayed out kind of implies not working. And then for users, same thing here, not graying it out. And this was a bug where if you see here, the label and the values here are a little bit smushed, too close on Firefox. Good old Firefox CSS stuff that Rachel Perkins just alluded to, and we've updated the styles to better spacing. All right, back to you, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks, Jacob. And next, Lucas. Lucas, tell me if I'm wrong. I think this is the oldest bug in the system that was solved, right?
Yeah, I believe so. One of the oldest. Yeah, one of the old.
Okay.
I'll share the screen. Yeah, so this bug is from 2020, January 2022. There's a reason it's been open for so long, mostly because it's hard to reproduce. And I'm not gonna try to read everything because we have the user report, and then we have a bunch of other users, like 3 or 4 users that hit a similar issue, but on different setups. Some users using internal certificates, like CA certificates on their own internal deployments of Fleet. Some other users hitting this bug with Let's Encrypt certificates. So it was a mess. But with the help of these people like Northgate, there were a few other users, this user and a few others, we managed to reproduce. So the issue is basically TLS. Sometimes it's hard to configure, and sometimes there are issues with certificates. Probably everyone knows that. So I'll quickly show. Just give me a second to show. I don't want to get to. Just a sec. Let me see if I can. I don't want to make this long, but just in a nutshell, usually certificates are the following ways. So you have a root CA, like a company that is a CA, signs an intermediate CA, and then this certificate signs a leaf certificate, which is what you actually have when you go to like google.com, right? And you have all these chains of certificates, right? It's mostly like even longer chains. And there are reasons to do this. One of them, you don't need to rotate the root often, and you just need to change intermediates and so on. But this sometimes leads to some issues, and I'm going to show now. So we have, real quick, we have Fleet on the left side, Fleet D on the right side. If you configure Fleet to serve the full chain, let's suppose this scenario, you have a root, intermediate, and leaf. If Fleet serves the full chain, then on the TLS connection, Fleet will send the 3 certificates in a chain. And then Fleet D, if you root if you pin the root certificate, then Fleet can verify the intermediate and the leaf, right? So that was working. The other scenario is, okay, this is like maybe an edge case, but Fleet serves the full chain. Fleet D pins the root and intermediate. This obviously worked. This is even better than this. Next scenario is sometimes, and I believe we saw this on Let's Encrypt certificates. Sometimes they provide the leaf certificate, meaning that the server will not send the root or the intermediate, right? But if Fleet D pins both the root and intermediate, then this is good. I mean, we can verify this leaf because Fleet D has the 2 certificates. Lastly, I'm getting closer to the issue. You can have Fleet serve the intermediate and the leaf, and Fleet D pin the root. That's fine because then Fleet D can verify the intermediate and the leaf, right? And this is where the issue happened. We managed to reproduce. You can have sometimes Let's Encrypt only provides the leaf, and in the fleet D, you just provide the root, right? And that's where users saw these issues because the lead certificate is signed by the intermediate, right? But the intermediate is not known by fleet D, so that was the issue. So we did. I'm gonna show. So there was no actual fix, but what we added for, probably this is good for Kathy and everyone in customer support. Whenever you see these certificate issues, I recommend using this tool that we had, very old tool called debug connection. So we can use, for example, you can debug a connection to dog food, and it will tell you that it can connect and it's secure to connect to dog food using the default root CA, right? But if you have a very special setup, like, I don't know, you have internal fleet, or you want to test some, or you want to actually troubleshoot some TLS certificate issues, you could use like localhost 8080. This will obviously fail because, I mean, localhost, my localhost is a fake server, right? But if we put fleet certificate, I think it's in tools, fleet CRT, then it works. And again, you can use this to test your certificate against your server without having to deploy fleet D, right? You just can do it from any host, and this will help actually troubleshoot these kinds of issues. Lastly, for this issue, we added the following article somewhere. Let's see, where is it? There we go. We added an article explaining all of this stuff and, you know, these errors that users will see when having these issues, and how to fix them, how to troubleshoot them. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully we can close this. Hold on, I'm gonna share again, sorry. I have an extra bug. Right, next bug, OS query. So this bug, actually we had a customer hitting this bug and a few other users, which is a load test bug, meaning that it's, if you deploy OS query at scale on Linux servers, you can, you know, your infrastructure can basically destroy the LDAP directory server, and we don't want that, right? So before 5.13, which is actually the latest release version of Orbit, of OS query, if you do a select star from users to a host that is configured to use LDAP, it will actually enumerate all the users on the directory. And now the fleet server actually uses this query to inject, like, to load the hosts to the users. So if you come here to host, you will see users here. So we actually are using that query. And imagine if you do like a select star from users on every host on your fleet, and you have, like, I don't know, 10,000. The 10,000 hosts will make 20,000 requests, and so on. It's gonna break the whole infrastructure. So to prevent this, we added an OS query core change, so that by default, when you do select star from users, it will only get local users, not LDAP users, right? So this will prevent users from breaking their own deployment. So I'll show this real quick. I have this Ubuntu machine that is configured to use LDAP, right? So I will first show 5.12.1. This is the latest OS query. And you will see here that I have 6 users, and 2 of them, Julie and Joe, are LDAP users. This is like the way it currently works. These users are not local. They are on an LDAP directory on another machine, right? And now we fix this by having, this is, I think this is the 5.13 one. it will only show local users. You can see that Joe and Julie are not here. And just so that users do not like miss or actually can use this functionality if they want to, we added a new argument. So if you do select star by users, you just get local users now, right? So you should get just local users here. Well, I'm not removing like those users, but basically you don't have Joe here, I guess, right? But you can do, if you really want to get LDAP users, you can have a new, we added a new flag where include remote one. And now you should get like Joe and Julie that were remote users. There we go. Joe and Julie are first. Those are all LDAP users. The rest are local. Yep. And this is actually not 5.13 is released. It's in a pre-release, and it will release sometime July, I guess. Yep. That's it.
Thank you, Lucas, for this great presentation, specifically the TLS Deep Insight. I would really like to see this chunk of video in the training library that we have. Yeah, maybe we bribe Drew and he'll give us a chunk of the video for the training. Thank you. Next we have Victor. Take it.
Thank you, Sharon. So the bug is that for customer on their Windows machine, in their system info query, occasionally they saw a -1 as the serial number. So we were not able to root cause this, but it appears to be kind of a hardware/Windows issue that occasionally reports a -1. So we kind of worked around this issue by effectively not accepting a -1 serial number. So that means if this machine was registered with a real serial number at some point, and then later it got a -1 response from OSQuery, we will just keep the original serial number. So I don't have a demo, just wanted to explain this bug. Back to you, Sharon.
Thank you. Thanks, Victor. And last we have Tim. Tim.
Hey. All right, I'm gonna spend a little bit more time. I'm still gonna be quick on this first one. So a little bit of background. It is a confidential issue, so maybe I won't open it. But it's long story short, it turned out to be kind of a sticky one, very sticky. In fact, something we weren't willing to tackle, but we still wanted to make sure we address the. This is in vulnerabilities. It's a false negative.
You can open it. There's no customer PII in that. I just put it in there just in case.
Sweet. Okay. Perfect. So it turns out this vulnerability is related to Office 365 on Windows, and I will kind of omit the details around why it's a really tricky one to fix permanently. But kind of going to the code, we have several methods, maybe 4 or 5 methods to address false positives in our code. We don't have a lot of patterns to address false negatives. So I did kind of expand the scope of this one a little bit just to kind of future-proof us a little bit. In fact, just kind of show you, in case you have to fix a false positive and you also get into a sticky situation, you just want to get it out the door. We have what I'm calling a custom CVE rule. So in this case, it does we can expand this obviously, but right now we're just doing a name match on software. In this case, it shows up through OSQuery software as Microsoft 365, and we match it against a number of CVEs, and we also provide a resolved inversion. So we will have to do this again on the next Office release, which might already be out actually. So just want to throw that out there, but it is fixed in this version. Next up, some false positives. This was a This was a bit of a regression in vulnerability processing since we last release we added what we called app matching, which gave us a lot more matching in NVD on applications that had a specific scope, like X software runs on only runs on Mac OS, and we weren't matching on that. We are matching it now. That provided a handful of extra vulnerabilities, false positives that we didn't want. So that was addressed. That was actually addressed in the patch release 4.5.3.1. Next up, we had a bug here where we're getting detected unavailable. Might be seeing this today. And the detected date is when we first see it in Fleet. First time that vulnerability shows up in Fleet. So that's what differentiates detected from published. So detected on some pages, software version details in particular, was not showing up. We had a missing value in the API. There's a created add value in the API. So that is fixed there as well. And this has come up a lot lately. I'm surprised it didn't come up earlier, but maybe there's not a lot of vulnerabilities out there that fall into this category, but occasionally NVD rejects vulnerabilities, and we still match them against software. At least we were, and now that is fixed. We will no longer match software to rejected vulnerabilities, and that's it.
That's great. Thank you, team. And look, that concludes everything, all the features and improvements.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Great job. Great release. Excited to get this out. Scheduled for Monday. We'll let you know if there are any delays to that. Have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining.